South fight between the New Orleans Saints going into the Carolina Panthers, and the real big question between these two teams is where's the run game? You got great running backs down there, and neither one of them is using them. I know Alvin Kamara was out against the Bucks, but even Week 1, he was pretty absent there. And then the Panthers, McCaffrey. You promised us all offseason McCaffrey's going to go back to what he was and better than what he was, and this offense is going to be about him. And they're like, we'll see what Baker can do this year. But I'm going to go the Saints here. I like the Saints defense given in trouble for Baker. But I do want more out of the Saints as more sacks. They're another one of those teams that only have one sack on the year, surprisingly, and they only got one against Brady, and they were actually back there in Brady's face a lot. And I do think Baker holds onto the ball more than Baker, so maybe they can pull off a few more sacks here this week. So I'm going Saints here. I like that defense.
Yeah, me and Nick are going Saints as well. I want to go. I really want to go to Panthers here, but just looking at Taysom Hill, who's penciled in as a tight end, and he's the leading rusher on the New Orleans Saints, is a hard pill to swallow. But
off of wildcat runs,
unreal. And then you take a look at the Panthers, and Robbie Anderson's the leading pass catcher for the. I don't know. It just seems like Baker just never throws to the number one. Like, it always seems like Baker.
Robbie benefited from Week 1
when the Browns had Odell Beckham. He didn't throw to him when they had Beckham. I mean, it just didn't throw to him.
True. That's a good point.
It's just weird to me. And here we are, same trend again. It's not okay. All right. No,
that's an interesting point out. I like that. You're right.
So, me and Nikki, we're going to take the Saints here. I don't like what Carolina's doing. Shout outs to my man Henry. I'm going to speak out for Henry. He doesn't like Matt Rule. Doesn't like Matt Rule at all. He thinks that they should get rid of him, and he thinks that that's the problem, and we're missing out with all the talent that we have on the Carolina Panthers, and we're not putting it to good use. Is what Henry thinks is going on there. I can't disagree, at this point. But they're 0-2. So, I mean, if there's a reason to play here harder than somebody else, I think it's the Carolina Panthers to prove to the New Orleans Saints in this division that they're a good team too. But I think New Orleans is a talented team. They got a scrappy defense, and it's going to be a tough one for Baker to edge out. And I just don't know if Baker and Robbie Anderson are going to be able to do it. I'm going New Orleans, and Nicky's taking the Saints as well.
Hoorah. It looks like me and Rhea are going to be holding hands on this one. I'm going Panthers. For a reason none of y'all mentioned. The pass rush, I feel like, is going to get to Jameis. He's been hurried and sacked a lot this year. Atlanta, terrible defensive line. It was like a sieve. And, of course, the Bucs were able to do the same to him last week. Carolina's defense is the reason why I'm going to take Carolina. I think they're going to be able to create turnovers from Jameis. I think the lack of kind of continuity, if they do indeed get a full Kamara back, I think he's trending on the better of the questionable side to play this week. And it will help them to a degree, but I like Carolina at home. If this was in New Orleans, I might swing it because I think it's that close of a pick. I think it's like a 23-20 game. Carolina's got to get that offense going. They got to get McCaffrey the ball. Hopefully this is a coming to Jesus Nick Sirianni last year moment for Matt Rule and the coaching staff, and they get the ball to McCaffrey, swing it to him, check it down to him, let him do work. And then the rest is going to take care of itself. It really will. It really will. He's that good of a player that he can change the game. So I'm going to go Carolina Panthers, 23-20. Yeah.
I like it. Good point. It's hard to argue that one. It's very good. But yeah, the only reason Eddie mentioned it, the big difference is that coaching staff. Dennis Allen is making it happen. He's Sean Payton's protege. Nothing's really changed with Sean Payton leaving. It's the same playbook. Nothing's different. And obviously Matt Rule's a big question mark. So But that Saints defense, or that Panthers defense, can easily give the Saints offense trouble. So it's easy.
Sure.
It's an easy, not an easy call. But next game,
Battle of former number one picks. Who would have thought? You say that about a game, and you're like, "Ooh, that's probably going to be a good one." Who is it? It's Baker versus Jameis. Oh,
I forgot
I'll
about
watch.
that. That's a
I'll watch
good
the
ad.
other. I'll watch the other one.
Michael Thomas has
forgot
been
about
balling too. Just that intensity he's bringing. I don't like all the interceptions on Jameis, man. Maybe that LASIK eye surgery wasn't as good as maybe we might have thought it was, or something like that. But we'll see what happens moving forward. But he's got a lot of picks.
He sees what's happening.
I hope somebody sees what's happening.
All right, next game. And this one is a hard one to call because you don't know what's actually going to happen with these injuries. But you got the Jacksonville Jaguars going into the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers had a sad loss to the Chiefs. They really wanted to win that game. You could see it on that whole team. They were trying their hardest. Herbert's going out there with fractured cartilage in his ribs, doing his best, making things happen. He's grimacing every time he throws the ball. You got the tight end Everett, who's breathing from his toes, trying to catch air before he, doesn't complete the route and ends up getting a pick six. But still, that whole team was trying their best to win that game. And so I'm going to pick the Chargers just because I think Herbert's going to force his way out there, injured and all. I mean, I am scared for him that, he's missing his center, so that Jacksonville D-line is going to put a lot of pressure on him. But I do think that Chargers offense is still going to be able to score on this Jacksonville defense and just outscore them by just an edge. They're a 3-point favorite here. I like the 3 points. It's going to be tight. And they're both good defenses, so I like the Chargers offense just a little bit more. And even with Herbert being injured and Keenan Allen being injured, they're still a better offense.
Yeah, I'm going. Me and Nicky are going Chargers as well. And there's nobody on Jacksonville's injury report. C.J. Jackson's doubtful. Yeah, Herbert's questionable. Allen's questionable. A lot of questions going on there, but I like the Chargers overall. They're a good team. Jacksonville's been playing well, 1-1 on the season. Chargers 1-1. I think Herbert's a go. I think Chargers win this.
Hope that they got some kind of apparatus for Herbert. Because I don't know if either one of you guys have had a rib injury, cracked a rib, cartilage, anything having to do with the rib cage. It's hard.
One fracture.
It's hard to
breathe.
It's hard to get out of bed. It's extremely painful. If somebody lands on him again, he could be done for the year. He could easily be done for the season. So I hope they're playing it right. They're a lot smarter than me. They got doctors, all that stuff. I'm just a guy, but it scares me. It scares me that it could get worse, and then that's your season. Either way, I think the Chargers get this one. Jags could easily be 2-0. They had the Commanders on the rope on the roads week 1, couldn't finish it off, let that one get away. Dominated the Colts like they do. That's kind of a rite of passage now. And they're coming in here feeling good about themselves, and they're healthy, and they're young. They don't know no better. Lawrence has looked good. Not crazy good, but he's looked good. So much better than what he looked last year. So the quarterback whisperer there is doing a good job. That defense is playing great. But yeah, I think the Chargers get this one. They're at home. But we talked about the Chargers in the offseason. At least I brought it up. They lost games that they shouldn't have lost, and they let teams last year be closer than they should have been. This is another one where I want to see Chargers go out there and handle business. Now, obviously, if Herbert's not 100%, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you got Eckler. Run the ball a little bit more. Hopefully they get Keenan Allen back, but we seen Mike Williams dominate last week against KC. So this should be a Chargers win. I got it 27-23. The Jags should be game. They should be game. James Robinson's running incredibly for them. I think you see a little bit more ETN in this game. Christian Kurtz balling out of the slot. So there's lots of positives for the Jags right now. But this is one kind of like the Bengals one. This is one where the Chargers should win. This is one they can't take a loss on this. It would be a
with you when you mentioned the fact that they need to have like kind of a better game plan for Herbert and him being beat up in those ribs. Last week before he was even beat up, he only threw 2 passes that went over 17 yards. Everything else, he had 15 that were screen passes, short behind the line of scrimmage, like dump offs. Their playbook's not very deep quarterback friendly for Herbert, so it's interesting because that's kind of what he's a great mechanical thrower. Dude can make those throws. He completed both of those passes, by the way, and they both ended up being for 74 yards. So I'd like to see him throw it down the field more, but obviously him being injured, they're probably going to continue with this softer throwing style for a little while. But I do think Chargers take it.
They got to get the ball out of his hands quickly because you don't want to take that hit. I am glad you brought up Gerald Everett. I am glad he finally found a home because I saw the talent he had with the Rams, but he was underutilized and behind Higbee. And then he went up to Seattle to play with Russ, and I thought maybe he'd get a little bit more run, and he just never really worked out to be an integral part of that offense. But you can see the talent that he has, and you add him to a Keenan Allen, healthy Mike Williams as well. That's just another dynamic to that offense.
Another big man.
Yeah, Justin Herbert, just another weapon to play with, and it makes their offense scary. It really does.
Mm-hmm. All right, next game, NFC West matchup. You got the Los Angeles Rams going into the Cardinals. Cardinals got a big overtime win against comeback fourth quarter and an overtime win against the Las Vegas Raiders. Both teams are a little bit beat up this game. Cardinals losing more, so they're going to be down to just AJ Green throwing the ball to right now and a beat up Zach Ertz. So that's going to be that's kind of the scary part for me is I don't think the Cards have enough weapons to keep up with a Rams team that can score fast and move the ball.
Me and Nicky are going Rams here. It's just divisional game, divisional opponent. The Arizona Cardinals came back and won that game last week against the Raiders, but this is a Los Angeles Rams team that's had their number for a while. And I think even though both defenses are letting up pretty big numbers per game here, it's ugly for the Rams. You would never think 29 points a game, and then you look over at the Cardinals, 33.5 points a game. That's a lot of points to be given up in a game. These two defenses give it up, and if it turns into
306 passing a game too.
That's crazy. Yeah, but I'm going Rams here. Me and Nicky, we're going Rams here. I don't know what you're thinking about their chart, but we're going Rams here.
You're right. The Rams have had their number. I like them. I like Cam Akers to finally have a little bit of a good game and get his mojo going.
Slow it down.
He didn't play much week 1. Week 2, he got the bulk share of the carries, but there was no production there. I think the Rams go a little bit more balance on this Arizona defense that's just letting everybody pretty much do what they want to do. It was a phenomenal game by Arizona last week. But the thing about the Rams is their defense is still predicated on speed. They might not have the names that we're accustomed to, but it's that same defense. And Eddie's right. They've got Arizona's number. And squarely, they have Kyler's number. They're just good at defending him. And you stack up the play against your division. I believe McVay is 8-1 against Kingsbury. If I remember correctly, 7-1 or 8-1 against Kingsbury. The one loss coming last season in the first game that they played when Arizona was just blazing through everybody at the beginning of the season. And Arizona just doesn't have the weapons on the other side. They don't. Rondale Moore is going to miss his 3rd game of the season. This is only the 3rd game of the season. Zach Ertz will eat. Hollywood Brown is, there's no Hopkins. He should be the number 1, right? He was the number 1 in Baltimore, but he had 14 targets last week. But it's just, I feel like in that offense, he should be a big time difference maker. And I think it's just the lack of options around him because the Cardinals are capable of scoring points. I think they get Connor back.
He's questionable.
Yeah. I think he's trending more towards, from what I've read, I think he's trending more towards playing. That gives you a nice red zone threat. But the Rams take this one personally. Anytime it's a division game, especially in this Western division, the teams really, really, because the coaching staffs kind of know each other and stuff. Like it's even more of a take it personal type of deal. So I'm gonna go Rams. Decently close. I'm sure the Cardinals can put up a pretty good fight, but I think the Rams get this one 28-23.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on Cam Akers, but I'll just touch on that real fast because as much as I'd love to see that happen, I just don't know if the Rams have that in their playbook. We talked about it all last year, including the playoff run in the Super Bowl. Like we want to see Cam Akers run. We want to see that offense run. And they were like the least run team in the league, and it's still that way. They're only getting 58 yards rushing a game. And if the Cardinals are giving up over 300 passing, I don't know if this is the game that you see Cam Akers, to the next level.
Well, just because the Cardinals, I mean, I say that because the Cardinals have just been playing so bad on defense. They really haven't put up much of a fight. And J.J. Watt's been out, I think, both games now. They're banged up. Their corners are banged up. And you're right, but at some point in time, the Rams are going to have to figure out that balance of Cooper Kupp versus allowing that run game so that Allen Robinson, and when they get Van Jefferson back and they get it, maybe they get Beckham to come back to their team, so that all that other stuff ends up working out, because you got to have the threat of a run. You don't have a mobile quarterback, so it's not going to be Stafford. Buffalo can get away with it because you got Josh Allen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see it, but it'll be interesting. I just don't know if the playbook calls for enough of that run. I don't even know if they have enough run plays in their playbook.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, you could say the same thing for Arizona, too.
Yeah.
It's almost a run just so they can set up a pass type of situation.
Yeah, Arizona's run part of the playbook doesn't open up until they're inside the 5-yard line. I mean, you saw it with James Conner. But let's keep the ball rolling. Next game. Interesting game here. Even scoreline of the Atlanta Falcons going into the Seattle Seahawks. Atlanta's been pretty steady on offense, whereas the Seahawks have kind of buttered, and they've done nice long drives that get points. So it's a tough one to call. The Seahawks defense is beat up. Adams going to IR, Diggs is questionable. You got the other guy, Blunt, he's doubtful. And Mariota's been a pretty good passer so far this year. And adding on top of that Cordero Patterson's still being the runner that he was last year. So I do like the Falcons here. I like the Falcons just edging it out a little bit here because that Seattle's defense is beat up on the back end.
I really want to, you got Nicky's taking Seattle here, guys. I'm not. Sorry, Henry. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. I wanted to do it. I was going to do it. The Atlanta's allowing 100. I was gonna do it, but just rushing, the Atlanta's letting up 108 yards rushing. I was like, all right, but the Seattle's only rushing for 56 yards a game. Geno's only scoring 12 points a game. I mean, they're only passing for 196 yards. It's like I'm at the helm on Madden and I'm passing. That's how many passing yards I get. That's not enough to. No, that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough. No, and the DBs stack up though. I mean, the size on this Traquan Woolen, 6'4" defensive back that Seattle has to go up against 6'5" Drake London. This is gonna be a matchup that you want to get your eyes on, or maybe have him run down Kyle Pitts, another 6'5" athlete. That's just incredible with size and speed and everything you want. You're like, how's this guy a tight end? I don't know. He is. But I'm going Atlanta here. I'm just going to take Atlanta. I think Atlanta's going to pull this one out. And, they're just doing more across the board. What do you mean, Eddie? They're scoring more points. All right? They're scoring 26 points a game. Seattle's letting up 21. I just don't see it. I mean, I just don't. I mean, maybe Geno comes out and throws for 400 yards, but I just in 2 games he's got 300. So I don't know. I'm just going what I got here. Sorry, 392. All right, but I'm going Atlanta here because they're probably going to stretch the field in less time. So I'm going Atlanta. Nick, he's going Seattle. What do you got, Char?
I love you bring up the Woolen versus London matchup. That is going to be exciting.
Hell yeah.
I do want to see that. The thing is, Seattle's offense
It's atrocious. It's atrocious.
they haven't scored in 90 minutes of football. That's 6 quarters of football. On offense, they haven't scored a touchdown in 6 quarters. It's what we thought it was. It's what we thought it was. And yeah, you played Denver, and yeah, you played San Francisco. Okay, but you got to put up points to win games. Atlanta has demonstrated that they can put up points. Seattle's defense, like Brady said, it's banged up. I think Kyle Pitts finally shows up to this game. I think he's gotten the wrong address to the previous 2 weeks game. I think he gets there in Seattle. Somebody escorts him, and he's going to abuse whoever is back there trying to cover him. And if they're smart, they get it to him. And Patterson, the Atlanta we talked about in the offseason, they got playmakers. They do have playmakers. Can you get enough out of Mariota? We were questionable. They've gotten enough out of Mariota. They almost stole that one late against the Rams last week, and they were beating the Saints the first game of the week. They just blew it. Now, their defense leaves a lot to be desired, but besides DK, there's nothing there. I mean, Rashad Penny, Walker's finally getting into the game plan. I think he got a little run last week. He should get more run this week. I do like Walker. Penny, not on my radar.
18 carries, 75 yards.
What's that?
18 carries, 75 yards for Rashad Penny. No touchdown.
Yeah.
2 games. That's in 2 games.
It's hard. It's the Geno thing because, I mean, at least when they had Russ, that big play was there. You know, he would air it out. Whether it was Lockett or it was Metcalf, he was taking shots. And they could be stagnant in the run game all game long, but he was taking them shots, and those boys can win. Geno's got to take a couple of those shots. He's at least got to take them. Right now, DK, I think the first week, he had like 4 catches for 18 yards. Come on, that dude is awesome. The radius on him is out of this world. Figure out, just take some shots. If you get picked, you get picked. I mean, you're not winning the division in this game. Okay, you're not going to. Take some shots. Let these big play guys you gave money to, let them go up and try to make a play. So I just don't see it with Seattle right now. I think their defense is scrappy. Even being down people, they're going to keep them in games. I've said it every week that we've done the show. But I think Atlanta, even though they have that propensity to let people come back and win, I don't think that happens in this game against Seattle. And Atlanta wins the game. I got Atlanta.
I get Atlanta across the board, except Nick's going Seattle. He's taking the upset. I mean, it's not really upset. It's an even scoreline. Upset against us, but we'll see.
It's not a pretty game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a pretty game.
But we got the next game, which is a pretty interesting game. We got a matchup of 2 really good defenses, top defenses in the league right now, with a couple of old guys running the helm on offense. You got the Green Bay Packers going in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When I looked at it this morning, the Bucs were a 2.5-point favorite, and then when I looked at it before the show we started recording, they're now a 1-point favorite, so it's dropped. Whatever reason, the final injury report came out for Friday. It wasn't anything different than what was expected. You know, Godwin wasn't expected to play; he's out. Donovan Smith, maybe they were thinking he'd come back, but he's doubtful with his hyperextended elbow. And then the guy that replaced him, Josh Wells, is out. So you're on that 3rd-string tackle who actually played pretty well there at when he filled in last week. But this is an interesting game. I do think the Bucs win this one because both wide receiver teams are pretty much questionable across the board. You know, Watkins is out, Lazard's banged up, Watson's questionable, Cobb's got an illness. So again, it's similar scenario with the Bucs. You know, you got Julio's banged up, Godwin's out, Evans is suspended, Scotty Miller's become Tom Brady's kind of probably kicking horse right now because of all the passes he missed, and I think also the fact that he didn't draw any of those passing interference calls that he should have, but that's a different storyline. But I like the Bucs here. I like their defense a little bit more against this Green Bay offense. The biggest scare I have, and the reason I'm actually taking the Bucs, is because Watson would be my biggest fear, him going over top. You saw Olave go past the Bucs defense there like 5 times last week, and Jameis couldn't hit him. I think if Watson was healthy and could run at full speed, he'd be getting past him and catching those balls because Rodgers can actually hit him versus Jameis actually hitting Olave. But with him being banged up, I like the Bucs because that takes off that over-the-top throw with him.
Yeah, I'm going Bucs as well. Nikki's taking Green Bay here. Nikki's going Green Bay. And I'm going Bucs because I like that Bucs defense against the run to shut that down and keep Aaron Rodgers one-dimensional and try and have, Aaron stretch the field to beat the Bucs. And, I just think with the Bucs run defense only allowing 85 yards on the season, I think that's a pretty good defense to stop the run game. And they're rushing for 100, and they got 157 yards on the season. So I think that's what's gonna. I think defense is gonna help out the Bucs here. Brady's gonna distribute the ball no matter who's catching the ball. I'm going Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. I don't know about you, Charlie, but that's what I'm doing.
It's gonna be an ugly game. It's gonna be 17-9 is my prediction.
I'm okay with it as long as the Bucs win.
Both of the defenses are the storylines for this game. I don't expect, obviously I said the score. I don't expect this to be pretty. I think the Packers have a better chance of moving the chains at the end of the day because Aaron Jones can catch balls out of the backfield and they've got that 1-2 punch than the Bucs do. They're just depleted on wide receivers, and that's tough. We've seen Tom Brady struggle so far this year in the passing game as it's been, even when it was at its healthiest at the beginning of the year. It's tough. I think Aaron Rodgers is able. I would have rather seen, because this is probably our last time seeing these two going head to head, unless it happens again in the playoffs. Because I'm pretty sure Tom Brady's probably done after this season, but who knows? He just keeps playing. He's the Energizer Bunny. But I think with that offensive line, their best bet is to try to run the ball, and that Packers defense is just as good as the Bucs defense is. And I just think Rodgers has a little bit more to work with than what Tom has this time around. As good as Fournette has been, and it's 17-9. It's a one-score game, so I don't think it's unfathomable for it to be a little closer than that, but I'm aside with the team that's a little bit healthier on offense. I think you're just, black and white when it comes to defense. It's the same thing you're getting on both sides. Special teams could play a role in this one too. We've seen, those type of things happen, but at the end of the day, I gotta go Green Bay.
I can see it. One thing I did want to add, since we are talking defenses, is the fact that the Bucs right now are leading the league with 10 sacks, and Aaron Rodgers has been sacked 7 times so far. He's got 4 against the Vikings and 3 against Chicago, and it affected him. I know they won against Chicago, but he didn't like that. Luckily he had both a healthy Watkins and a healthy Lazard, and Watkins was the number 1 man last week, and Watkins is out, and Watson's hurt. But I just think that, again, with that Bucs defense, as much pressure as they're getting on QBs and they're being, the sack leaders right now, it'll be tough. But I can easily see your argument with them being a slightly healthier offense.
And
go ahead. Ed.
And Bakhtiari's injured. He's questionable.
Yeah. The Bucs defense has been phenomenal. They really have been phenomenal. But if you look at the teams they played, Dallas has not shown any run game, and they rarely do. And then last week you had no Kamara, so the threat of the run game there with Mark Ingram probably wasn't going to happen. So here you're going to get 2 studs at running back. Are the Bucs capable? Yes. I just think there's going to be a little bit more ground gained there on the ground, and there's just a little bit more on the outside. And the quarterbacks are, the same. They're the same. They're both capable of doing the same things here and at an elite level. But it's just weapon-wise, it's for me, it's on the side of Green Bay. the weapons. If Mike Evans was there, if Chris Godwin was there, if even one of them was there, I might feel differently, honestly. It's just I think the Bucs are going to struggle when it's 3rd down and 7. Who's your guy? You know what I mean? And then Perryman's banged up too on top of that. So it's just like, who do you go to? You don't even have Grind. You know, there's this. I haven't seen anything out of Brate that's made me go, okay, he's good enough. You know what I mean? It's just it's tough for me to figure out how they're going to move the ball on 3rd down. I think they're going to struggle.
It'll be interesting. We'll keep an eye on that game for sure. Next game, Sunday Night Football, an interesting one. You got the San Francisco 49ers, new QB at the helm with Jimmy G, taking back over his spot, going into the Denver Broncos with Russ. And honestly, I'd go with the Broncos if they weren't beating themselves. You know, week 1, 12 penalties, 106 yards. Week 2, 13 penalties, 100 yards. And I talked about it when they were facing the Texans. If the Texans did a little bit more on offense, they would have won that game because Broncos are beating themselves with these penalties. And obviously they're, that offensive line, but these penalties are killer. And 49ers are a well-coached team. They make very little mistakes. And Jimmy G, as mediocre as he is, he's still a safe passer, and he's got a high floor. He has a very low ceiling, but he has a high floor for a quarterback. So I like the 49ers here.
Yeah, me and Nicky are going 49ers here. Yeah, continuity issues, and like Brady said, the penalties. That's why I'm not going Denver. I think they got some more taking it back to the basics and getting better at some things before they can be at an elite level. Maybe it's just taking Russ a little bit to get the offensive line on the same page he's on, and or vice versa. And I don't know. Judy's not on the injury report on this one, but I'm sure he is somewhere. So for that, I'm going 49ers. Me and Nicky are going 49ers. I don't know about you, Charlie, but that's what I'm doing.
I didn't expect everybody to go 49ers. When I looked at this game originally at the beginning of the week, I'm not going to lie, I went 49ers. But then I marinated on it a little bit, and I think this is a good spot for Javonte Williams to finally score his first touchdown. I think the Broncos are going to look a lot better in this game. I haven't been impressed thoroughly with the 49ers defense. I mean, they handled a Seattle team, but we already, we touched on how anemic that offense is. And they played a Bears team in the slop, and the Bears got the best of them. Jimmy G is going to add some steadiness to the offense, but at no point in time last season when they made their, the long playoff run there, was the 49ers a juggernaut. They picked it up at the end of the year, and they rode a hot streak into the playoffs. Other than that, they were 3rd in the division most of the year. I love Deebo Samuel. I love the fact that Kittle's finally going to play football this week. That's great news because dude's awesome. And Jimmy G's one that can hit him. It sucks what happened with Trey Lance, but I feel like the 49ers are a better version for themselves right now than what they would have been with Trey Lance at this point. But I think Denver is able to utilize those weapons. Judy being off the injury report, that's even a bonus right there. I was going to go with Denver even if he was on the injury report. KJ Hamler is scheduled, I think, to get back this game, so that'll add a new little wrinkle, Tyler Lockett-esque, to the offense. But I really like the running game for the Broncos. I think they're going to give the 49ers a little bit of a taste of their own medicine in this one, and I got Denver winning it pretty handily. I got them 28-13, 28-17 in this one.
Yeah, I'd feel a little bit better about Denver, but again, like I mentioned, the penalties, they're leading the league with number of penalties, leading the league in penalty yards, but they're also 0 touchdowns in the red zone.
Yes.
0 on 2 weeks, so that's something they need to improve on.
But they're there a lot.
They're not.
You got to figure Russ and them are going to figure it out, especially with that run game. I mean, he had 2 goal line fumbles against the Seahawks. I figure you're going to figure it out. You don't have to figure it out in spectacular fashion all in one game, but believe that number does change. It's hard to think that it wouldn't.
Yeah. And then when you touched on with Jimmy G in the the later part of that season last year when they had a big stretch, and like because I had mentioned he had like really high floor, like he had the best passer rating in like the final 7 or 8 weeks of football last year. Of all the quarterbacks, he had the best passer rating, which is interesting because when it needs to be done, he can do it. And I believe under Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, they're a really good football team with Jimmy G. When you just look at the record, like him and Jimmy G are like 32-9 or something like, or 32-12, and then without Jimmy G, he's like 9-29. Like
That's why I scratched my head that at first they hadn't re-signed him, and there was all this trade stuff. God forbid.
Yeah.
What if he would have been on Seattle right now? Would they have turned to Nate Sudfeld? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Wow. Huge break for the Niners. Huge break.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting Sunday night football game. I wasn't too thrilled looking at it as being like a Sunday night matchup, but there's good potential there if the teams play smart, healthy, straightforward ball. That it'll be a nice run heavy gridiron fight for who's going to win this game.
That's another thing. They're banged up at running back too. They signed Marlon Mack. They signed Tevin Campbell back, and Jeff Wilson is the lead back. Jeff Wilson's a good runner, but he's not dynamic. The offense is going to look a little different, obviously with Jimmy G back there. But Niners, that's going to be a big switch over in philosophy. It's not just going to be waking out of bed and everything goes good. It did against Seattle. Jimmy G, first drive, threw a touchdown last week. Everybody's patting him on the head. All kinds of memes out there, all that stuff. But he is still Jimmy G. He, is the same guy that for the majority of the time he's thought as, Kirk Cousins, brother-in-law type of deal. For a reason.
All right, final game of the week, Monday night.